Sabula, thank you so much for allowing us in, in these lockdown times. We are grateful.
Thank
We are
you.
grateful for the time. How has it been for you so far? Day
Well,
three.
day three, very, very confusing. You don't know uh, when this thing is going to stop. We have we actually have an idea of when it started, but it looks like we are all anxious to hear that there is some cure or vaccine that when you take a jab, you are able to, what do you call it? You wouldn't be catching it. And you can imagine, I have to call off my vacation. I'm supposed to have been going for a vacation with the family.
Oh, sorry.
And we paid for the tickets, everything paid for, but you can't go. So you can just imagine, how devastating this whole thing is. And now we are told to stay home if you are not part of the essential workers. For your own sake, it is not like a curfew, but you step out there and if objects or persons have been contaminated, you end up getting contaminated and bringing the disease back home. Or if you are contaminated at home, you take it out there to contaminate other people. So we are safer at home. That's what I think. We are safer at
So
home.
you've closed work.
Yes, we temporarily we have, but fortunately, we have a lot of online things we do. I mean, where our customers still reach us via online means, telephone and all that. So all that is still on, but we have reduced the amount of visits, technicians and all that would have to do to such a time that this whole thing probably subside. We have an idea, so we are told that probably the call it the trajectory, if it's going up, maybe it's flattening, but at the moment we seem not to know how this thing is going. It keeps going up.
And how has it been being locked down in at home?
Being locked in, I would say it hasn't been good. I mean, no one wants to be. It's almost like your liberty, the right to free movement has been curtailed, and so it's a painful one. I believe the family too, but I think it is for our own good. But for me, I mean, what I do, I also, I mean, we are as a business, or as we would know, we are part of the essential workers, and so I am able to go out, and I have done one or two outings.
I was going to ask you about your
Yes,
impression.
yes,
So
I've done
far.
one or two outings to monitor and be able to probably let the public know how things are going, let the executive, those I can reach out to, let them know how this whole thing is working. So I wouldn't say I have been home. I have also gone out there to do Facebook Live, quarantine myself in my vehicle and broadcasting to the general public and the world how this whole lockdown thing is being adhered to. Yeah.
So from moving around, from your observations, we've moved around, we have our observations.
Yeah.
But from your observations, what would you say? Would you say that we are complying? Would you say Ghanaians are complying?
Largely, I think we are complying, but it is too early days yet to say we are complying because what I saw, I wasn't pleased. Because, first of all, there is too much confusion with regards to who qualifies to be an essential worker and who is not qualified to be, and also who qualifies to step out there and who is not qualified. Because if you look at it, they say you can go and buy food, but they didn't specify where you can buy the food. Assuming my home is here, this is where I stay. Can I go all the way to Circle to go and buy food? They didn't tell us. Do we have boundaries? They didn't tell us you can go and buy medicine. Can I travel all the way from this place to where? Tema, to go buy medicine from Tema if that's where my pharmacy is? Or I have to use courier. These are things that they didn't specify. You came in your work van with workmen. You are all work people, branded vehicle. I saw, what do you call it, distribution vans that had just one person, and I could tell it was empty. And most of these distribution vans, the drivers or the distributors usually park them at home. So if I was one of them, and probably I felt the need to go out. I just jump in the vehicle and I exit. When you stop me, can't you see I am distributing food items to shops? I'm going to the next shop, yet I'm just going around doing my own thing. So I think it should have been pruned down. Today is day 3. I haven't done monitoring, but at least I've done 1 or 2 monitoring already. Yesterday's one I did about 3 hours, which to me, I wasn't too pleased. I went into the communities. I went to Laboni Mami, I went to Osu Mami, I went to Abosu Okai. I drove around. I did 3 hours of live streaming on my Facebook page. So if you go there, Adam Bona Facebook, if you go there, you would see it. Live Facebook, and people didn't actually know what was going on. If you go to the community, yesterday, from around this time till about 8 p.m., I was going around, and you can see I came across few roadblocks. But as you drove into the communities where the people are, they were actually having parties. There were people busy walking the street and holding each other in arms, and as if nothing was going on. And so I think that somehow somebody would have to revise this whole directive to make it more restrictive, because this is not something we should joke with if you take what other countries are doing. So my impressions are that it is better than nothing. But if we want to make it more effective, probably we need to relook at what we are aiming to achieve. Because as we speak today, the number is almost close to 200 officially. Yeah. Almost close 190. To 200, 190 something. And so my point is that we are running in terms of numbers very fast. If you look at how many ventilators we have, and the trick in dealing with this particular disease is how many ventilators you have. Because those who suffer severe, symptoms would have to be put on a ventilator. Yeah. And as a country, we have less than 100 or so ventilators. So what it means is that a country of 30 million, you can imagine if, God forbid, even 1% of us or 1% of Ghanaians, suffer severe, begin to develop severe symptoms. What happens?
We are in trouble. I want us to stay on the order for the directive that came from the president. And I absolutely agree with you. I think that it was a little too ambiguous, it was a little too broad.
Yeah.
And so it leaves room for too many interpretations, and that makes it difficult for compliance. If I don't know where I stand, how do I comply? However, adding on directives for me then also become a challenge, because yesterday at the office, we're talking about this thing about moving out with an office branded vehicle, and they brought a new one that now, in addition to the vehicle being a branded, office vehicle, you should have a security sticker. And so now we are moving out with a security pass because the stickers are apparently not even ready. So then if you had met a driver yesterday night, this directive must have come sometime late afternoon thereabout, and this driver is moving around with no sticker, and you apprehend him as a law enforcer, he'll be right to be right, because he did not hear when the president spoke that he had to have a sticker. Exactly. Or he had to have a, so I'm wondering how are we going to comply if we can't see our way clear?
I mean, like you're saying, I haven't picked up this information about a security sticker. So there you go. Who is supposed to be issuing the security stickers? Who is supposed to be issued? Do you issue them yourself, or you go to, is it the Ministry of Interior, or you go to the Ministry of what you have? Who is supposed to be issuing all defense? Who is supposed to be issuing this sticker? And so that is where the confusion is, and you can see the officers are kind of a bit overstretched. And I'm wondering that if for just 2 regions, technically less than 2 regions, because it is not even the whole of Greater Accra, because they are not people in Adan having been quarantined, unless I'm wrong. People in Afienya have not been quarantined, unless I'm wrong. And so my point is that you can imagine if you decide that the whole of the Greater Accra region, you have to quarantine all of us. The whole of Ashanti region, you are quarantining everybody. These are about 2 of the biggest regions you have in this country. So if with pockets of municipalities, we are not able to enforce the lockdown, then if you probably open it up to include more municipalities or communities, it means that you can't do anything. And so there should be clarity of message, clarity of instructions, But that is what we are lacking. Clarity is not there.
Absolutely.
Everybody seems to be this today. I'm not cutting you, but that they are going to do compulsory testing. I think somebody in government said it. Then later the Minister of Information said no. The Minister of Health also said no. There is rather a misinterpretation of what they meant. And so then my point is that there has to be clarity because we are in crisis. And crisis time means that no one should be sleeping, including the citizens. So if you realize, everything we are doing now has to do with this COVID-19. But the confusion in town is a bit too much, if you ask me from where I sit.
I totally agree with you, sir. I do. Now, let's look at this issue of enforcement. Enforcement. I would have hoped that we wouldn't even need for anybody to enforce it, that every Ghanaian would appreciate what is at stake. And once you are being told to stay home, that we would all stay home. But, and I'll go by what you're saying, first day, second day, less of people were playing football, on the streets. And so obviously there's need for enforcement. Now, the police is out, the army is out. When we go to La Paz, I wanted to speak to the person in charge. And it was a police commander who was in charge. He gave us the opportunity to speak to him. But then when I finished speaking, I was wondering, do I now have to go look for who is also in charge from the army side as well? And so who is actually enforcing? And if both of them are enforcing, do both of them have the same rules of engagement? Or are they operating separately?
You see, this is where some of us usually disagree with the way and manner we do things when it comes to security. When you are talking about internal security, the police is always in charge internally. And so it doesn't matter who you bring to be part of the security task force. The line of instructions, there is a clear line of instructions. You take it from the police. Whoever is supposed to be speaking for the task force should be a police officer. It's just like elections. There's a very good reason why when we are having a general elections or there's an election, the task force that is formed is usually the police that is at the forefront. And so with this, you realize that even the deployment, the army did their deployment, the police did their deployment. So I'm not sure if you went into town, you saw police and military working together. Did you see them at one point?
Yes.
Or you saw the police there and the military at the other side? What did you see?
They were all at one point.
Okay, so
the military had their what do you call it? That they are very nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So the police they were not seated together.
Together, yes.
But they were the same spot.
Okay. So then my point is
I think at a couple of places.
A couple of places, but some of the places you only find either military or police.
Yeah.
And so mine is that adds to the confusion. So who do you talk to? Because at some point you see police officers sometimes brutalizing, and at some point you see army officers brutalizing. And so who is instructing who? So that clear line of action, who is in charge, has really not been defined. And so if you realize, in most of the communication, you see the military officer comes to talk, the police officer comes to talk. When they are the information minister is talking. Mine is that there has to be a task force and somebody has to be in charge of the task force. And so let's have that person speaking for
both of them,
the entire team. But when you have this speaking for this and that speaking for that, but you should remember that the military are not mandated to perform some of these duties. So if you go to places, the most advanced countries, you will not find the military just like that. They would only deploy them when state of emergency in some states in the US, yes. But when we haven't declared a state of emergency, this is just a lockdown, not a state of emergency. We are not conflicted.
So ideally, it should have been just the police.
It should have been just the police. Then you leave the military at the, at the barracks. When things get out of hand, they are always the standby force you bring in. But we brought them in a bit too early. And once you bring them in, when things are getting out of hand, who do you fall on?
Then what?
Yeah, when things are getting out of hand and you decide to declare, a state of emergency, are you now go? Because we already know the military. Maybe they've come and they couldn't contain it. But if you had left the military and said the police take charge, maybe police, immigration, and the rest take charge, then you leave the military for what do you call it, strategic reasons. When things get out of hand psychologically, when the military comes
Now
in,
the military is here.
people will think, okay, now the military
Now
have
it's
come.
serious issue.
It's serious issue. But at the moment, you've deployed. So there's really, you saw a military officer getting slapped.
Yes,
I don't know whether you saw that
yeah,
video.
I've seen that video.
Yeah, you can only see that.
A military officer showed it to me.
Okay, you can only see
the
that
video.
in today Ghana. Those days, if you saw a military officer and he instructed you, you started running. But today, he issued him slap. It tells you we have lost our fear for authority.
So let's stay here for a minute now. How should they enforce this lockdown? It's tricky. We've seen videos of military men in trotros literally begging people or admonishing or appealing on their good conscience. I've seen that video. It was trending.
Yeah, I saw it too.
Yes, the man was literally begging them and appealing to their conscience. You guys, it's in your own interest. Don't do that. Don't come out. I mean, what are they supposed to do